Hi everyone, it's Hillary Ellers from Lightwork Studio, and we are going to be entering now the third part of our lesson on best friends. Today we're going to be talking more about our pets, and we've been talking about the more ancient traditions. We've been talking about tribal traditions in terms of thoughts of animals and spirituality. And today I just want to bring this home as we close this topic today, just talking about our sweet little animals that we have around us. So we've been talking about what animals do for us and how they help us. And one of the things that our pets do, they do help us relate to our totems or our power animals, and they also help us relate to our phantoms. We often anchor a part of our soul in our pets, and we experience many times our pets as the sweetest, kind of purest part of our lives, and certainly it may be the only place that we really get unconditional love in our relationship with our pets. Think about what it feels like when you lose a pet, because we anchor so much in our pets. We may actually feel as if we've lost a very important part of ourselves, and it's sometimes very hard to get over the loss of a pet. You know, for quite a while, I asked you to bear with my little dog, Mamie, because she was very sick and she was coughing quite a bit. And I said, you know, if she coughs, please bear with her, because I'm letting her be with me and near me. She always was near me, usually at home. And it's interesting, she never coughed one time, I don't believe, when we were recording. It was very interesting. And, you know, I think we all have at times regrets about one thing or another. And Mamie was getting more and more weak, and she had cancer, lung cancer, and she was having a harder and harder time breathing, and she was getting to the point that she was kind of panting. And I felt like it was time to put her down, because it appeared to me as though she was suffering in her own way. I didn't so much have the feeling that she was in physical pain, but just the having trouble breathing is a kind of suffering within itself. And in the past, I've had severe asthma, so, and not now, thank goodness, knock on wood, but I know what it feels like to not be able to breathe. So my partner and I started making plans to have her put down. And, you know, she was a very, very smart animal. And that last day she was alive, we were choosing how, who we were going to take her to we were thinking of having someone come to the house and euthanize her. And she was, walking around while we were talking about all this. And I remember that I was sitting at my kitchen table facing a doorway to another room, and she kept coming and standing in the doorway and looking at me. And I knew she was communicating with me that she wanted me to go sit down with her on the sofa. And I kept saying, we'll do it later. We'll do it later, because I was, busy. And I was getting this businessy stuff taken care of. And she'd go away and then come back again and look at me and ask again if I would go sit down with her. And that evening, before I had a chance to be with her, she died. And I feel very sad about that I didn't make that time, to just go sit down with her. And it's interesting, isn't it? When we think we have time, we think we're going to have time, and oh boy, I know, I don't think she held that against me in the least, but been something I'm working on letting go of. And it's so interesting because when we lose a pet, I think because we invest such a pure part of ourselves in them, it's kind of like we may have a feeling as if we are like losing a part of our soul when they die. And it gives me goosebumps even thinking about that, So it's very common that we actually anchor part of ourselves in our pets. And then when they pass, we feel like we've lost part of that part of ourselves. But, really, we haven't, and we find it again. And what about our pets and our animals, period, and reincarnation? Well, animals do reincarnate. And it's very common, it is very common for an animal to have a spiritual relationship with a human. Not just a love relationship, but a spiritual one. And I feel that at times we make agreements with an animal to help them and to take care of them, and they make an agreement to be with us and help us. And in those cases, it is not unusual for an animal to come back in and reincarnate with the same human. And and I was thinking about this earlier when I was meditating earlier, and I was thinking about different pets I've had that have meant so much to me from the time I was a little girl. There have been 3 or 4 pets that were just my special animals, And I began to wonder was it possibly the same soul that was coming back in for me? And it could be. I noticed some similarities, so maybe, and I definitely believe that it happens. So know that sometimes when you lose an animal, that animal actually may come back to you in a new body or another form. I feel, you know, that we learn a lot more about loving from our animals, and I think we really learn how to love better through our animals. Now, it's just a wonderful thing to be able to have that kind of love and that kind of relationship. Let's talk about our communication with animals and with our pets in particular. So I've got some guidelines I want to share with you. You may already know a lot of this, but let's talk about the best ways to communicate with an animal and how to strengthen your communication with an animal. First of all, be clear within yourself about what you're communicating. Be honest. So that kind of goes without saying, but be honest. Be respectful. Use your voice to help you in the communication. And you know, I even sing to my animals, like, here we have a new friend coming in. Hello. This is Fiona. The last cat that was in the video was Jaja, and this is Fiona. So I sing to my pets sometimes, and when I sing to them, it's not just a song, but I'm telling them things. So I use singing as a way to communicate with them. Be calm when you're communicating. Even if you're upset and unhappy with them, or they're doing something that just drives you up the wall, try to express yourself in a calm way. When giving a command to an animal, use only positive words. And the idea here is to tell them what you want them to do. Don't tell them what you don't want them to do. There's an interesting thing here in which communicating with an animal is very similar, maybe the same, as communicating with your own subconscious. And when you're communicating with your subconscious, the same thing applies. Use only positive words, and tell your subconscious what you want, and phrase what you want in a positive way. It's said that our subconscious, when we use a negative, it only hears the negative word. It doesn't hear the overall message, like don't do that. It just hears don't. Like, I'm not saying this correctly, forgive me, I'm sorry. If we're only using positive words, our subconscious understands. If we put in negatives, it is said that our subconscious will misunderstand what we're trying to communicate. That's the best way I can say that. Now, another important point in communicating with an animal, don't just use a verbal communication. Use imagery. image what you want and send that image to the animal. Animals are definitely psychic, and they definitely pick up on what you're thinking. Haven't you noticed that? It's funny, isn't it? I've noticed that I can think about feeding a pet and they begin to prepare to eat. You can tell. They know what I'm thinking before I take any action. And the same is true if I'm going to do something they don't like give them some medicine or something. I can think about it and they go hide. It's really neat. So use that power of imagery to communicate. And when you're imaging, see in your mind's eye what you want your animal to do. Be consistent. I mean, I guess, again, some of these things really go without saying, but be consistent. Do what you promise you're going to do. That's so important. Trust. Very important in all your relations. Do not speak of the future or the past. I mean, it's all right, I guess, to speak of the future and the past, but know that your animal is so anchored in the now that it may not make a lot of sense to them for you to talk of the future or the past. I think it's kind of unfair to say, tomorrow I'll take you for a walk. You know, they're in the now. You know, it would be sort of like, don't talk about a walk unless we're going to do it. Be careful that you don't get into using domination or will when you're working with your animal. Entice them instead. Use ways to inspire them, entice them or intrigue them to meet you halfway in things. And so use their curiosity, their sense of fun, and their desire to please you and work with you when you're working with them. And you can actually pull them into what you'd like them to do by making it fun, making it playful. One thing I recently learned about is that if you're going to reprimand an animal or even give a command, don't use their name. I'm not certain why that's true, but it's not like, Jojo, come here. It would be better to just say, come here. And I'm not quite sure. I think that using the name can be confusing to them at times if you are giving a command. So what about tuning into animals? As is true with tuning into anything, relax. You start with relaxing. Use your imagination. And imagine you're tuning into another person. In other words, project onto your animal that they're just like another human being. And they are far more like you than different from you. And I think that's true. And it makes it easier to tune in if you don't see them as different, real different than a human. Use your feelings and imagination. So, as always, and don't I say this, I bet every lesson I've talked about imagination. I guess we ought to have a lesson on imagination. But imagination is the doorway to so many things. And use your imagination, and when you are projecting an idea or a desire to your animal, or when you are communicating in terms of tuning into them, don't be afraid to use your imagination. One of the things I do, and I don't know if I've ever told you this before, but when I'm tuning into people, when I give a reading, I start out by imagining I know them. And I imagine I know all about them. And then I start feeling as if I do know them. Be careful that you don't get caught up when you're tuning into an animal. Be careful that you don't get caught up in projecting negatives onto them, or prejudices, or look beyond appearances. We recently got a dog, or not too long ago, we got a dog because my daughter brought this dog to us, and my daughter is an absolute animal rescuer, but we end up being the rescuers. She brings the animals in need to us, and she found a dog that was locked in a construction site, and evidently the workers had left for the weekend and didn't realize that the dog was behind the fence and it couldn't get out. There was no water, no food for it or anything. And my daughter climbed this tall fence to get in and rescue this dog. And then, of course, brought the dog to us. And the dog was just a mess. It was a curly-haired dog, and I'm not exaggerating. I betcha the hair on this dog was probably about this length. And it was all matted and all, oh boy, a mess. And I named the dog Muffin because it just looked like a rag muffin. Maybe that was mean, but I think Muffin is a cute name, and but I did actually think of it as a little rag muffin, and oh, it can be Muffin. And we had this dog groomed, and no one would ever recognize it. I wouldn't have. I would not have recognized it as the same dog. And it looked about, no lie, 1/3 the size. It looked kind of big. I mean, not tall or anything, but sort of big. And when it was groomed, it's like, gosh, it's sort of a small dog down under all that hair. What do you feel when you're tuning into an animal? And here, this is important, not think. What do you feel? Not think. And you'll begin to feel traits that an animal has, that are just like traits humans have. You might be aware of this animal is very, very determined. It has a great deal of will and determination. Or you may feel this animal is very calm. Or this animal actually has a great sense of humor and playfulness. And when you feel that, it will feel just like you're tuning into a person who's determined, who is calm, who has a lot of humor. So when you're tuning into the animal, be sure and thank them. First, ask permission, as you would with anyone you're tuning into. It's always good ethics, good psychic ethics to ask permission. And you can ask on an inner level. Then it's always a very nice thing to thank who you are tuning into for letting you know certain things, or in a way presenting parts of themselves to you. And this is always the case when you're tuning in to anyone or anything. And this is one of the hardest things about tuning in. Be willing to be wrong, because you will be. It's great. It's a great ego lesson to tune in. It's said that people who are really, really good at tuning in are perhaps maybe 80% correct, and that's like really good. So what about 20% there that you're off? And you just must be willing to be wrong. If you're not willing to be wrong, tuning in won't work for you. And usually when I'm working with people, if it's the first time I work with them, I will let them know that, which I probably shouldn't have to let them know, or maybe don't need to let them know, but I'll usually let them know that, you know, some of what I say probably won't be right. Use your own sense. Feel, is this right? Is this right for me? Use your own sense, because people tuning in are wrong some of the time. And always in terms of tuning in, I would say that, you know, we started out by saying be relaxed, and there's a sort of attitude of tuning in which not only are you willing to be wrong, because you have to be kind of relaxed for that, but there's sort of a way of giving the other person permission to not be easy to work with. And I find, you know, on occasion, not very often, luckily, but sometimes when I'm tuning into a person or an animal, they can be much harder for me to tune into than usual. And I've wondered about that. Are they purposefully withholding? And I don't particularly think so. It just may be that our wavelengths are different enough that it's harder for us to interpret their energy. I know one time I was working with someone, and I like to have feedback every now and then when I'm working with a person. Of course, with an animal, you don't necessarily get that. But in working with a person, I like it if once in a while they'll say yes, as if they're affirming, something I've said. And if I don't get any feedback, what I find is that I will ask people sooner or later a question that they need to answer. And I think it is just because I need to get energy from that person more than I'm getting. And so it's nice to get feedback, because sometimes when a person is, at times a person may be sort of blank canvas, and it's really hard to read them, and I can't really tell if I'm on target or not. So maybe 10 or 15 minutes into a session, I'll just say, can you identify with what I'm saying? Like, hey, help me out here. Don't let me swim into the shark pool here and go further and further, or the lion's den or something. So, but with animals, you really can't do that so much. But what you can do is watch their body language, because on some level they know you're tuning in. And it may make them a little uncomfortable, it may make them a lot uncomfortable, it may not bother them at all, but pay attention and be willing to know that sometimes you're off. I hope that you've enjoyed these lessons we've done, these 3 sessions we've done regarding animals. And I hope that if you have a pet, the work we've done here with about animals will help you in your relationship with your pet, or at least perhaps it will give you something to think about. Some questions, make it, and I hope have gotten stirred up for you. And before I close today, I would really like it if you would communicate any questions you have to me, because I would really like to do a session from time to time and just answer your questions. It would be so fun. I love to do that. So my email address is at the beginning of the lesson in regards to how to make a donation. And it is under the PayPal information, my email address. Send me questions. I'll really like it. Take care, and thank you so much. Just allow yourself to enter your body more completely, more consciously. And do whatever you need to do to be comfortable. Imagine now that any sound that happens beyond our meditation is simply life unfolding around us. And let it be part of your meditation. As you step more consciously into your body. Begin now to pay attention to breathing. And let yourself feel how good it feels to breathe. Every incoming breath is bringing a soothing wave of relaxation throughout your entire body. Every part of you relaxes. Every incoming breath is bringing a soothing wave of relaxation through your entire body. Feel your muscles growing longer as you relax. Your shoulders dropping. Every outgoing breath carries with it all of the tension of the day. All of the tension of the day out and away from you. And when you feel you have relaxed as much as you can, find yourself relaxing even more. From this deeply relaxed place, you are in contact with many things that normally are beyond your reach. In this moment of deep openness, allow yourself to find the stone that represents the highest point within the mineral kingdom for you. And allow yourself to feel this gemstone. Feel its energy for you. And now, allow yourself to be in touch with the plant totem that is the highest point for you in the plant kingdom. Flower or tree. Be in touch with whatever plant is the high point for you in the plant kingdom. and feel the energy of this sacred plant. And now, allow yourself to perceive the high point for you in your journey through the animal kingdom. And as you perceive your animal totem, your power animal, allow yourself to feel its energy. Give thanks for this connection with each of these archetypes. And know that you can return. Give thanks for these connections and gradually now begin to return. As you return, find yourself very safely anchored in the container of your physical body. And you can begin to stretch or move. Open your eyes when you're ready. And what I'd like you to do is to continue to meditate on your totems, your mineral and your plant and animal totems. And it would be very great for you to have a meditation journal and just make notes about each of your meditations, and you might want to put those mixed into your notebook, however you want to do it, but very nice to record just a little bit about your meditations. Take care, and don't forget to send me your questions.